My wife often walks out on me when it's time to preach. We've been having problems for years. There's no sense in hiding it anymore, isn't there? No, I left the book back there. Well, thank you for... Oh, yeah, honey, I got him right here. Oh, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. All right. Oh, thank you. It's been a whirlwind trip, and I'm just up in the area for a few days. My wife's mother had a birthday party. We're over there in Delaware, and I'll be here just this morning, and then Brother Bishop's church tonight, and then heading back to Tennessee on Monday. So I only have one service here with you this morning, and I'm glad to be here. I've not been here before, but again, I know you're a pastor from Bible College, and there's a good chance for us to learn some things this morning. Albert Einstein used to say, "I never let my schooling interfere with my education." And you can learn a lot by reading, and that's my job. I'm a missionary to the Baptist. I write politically incorrect books. I have to run around like a snake oil salesman and sell them. But I don't mind, because this is how you'll learn some things you wouldn't know otherwise. Appreciate the pastor plugging them for me. But these are three unbelievably unusual books. Now, Brother Howes used to say, a lie can go around the world 3 times while truth is putting its boots on. That means good news travels real slow. So this book's been out since 1993. I meet people all the time that don't have it, never heard of it. And that's because the people with the microphones won't give you the time of day to promote what you're doing. We get the microphones in the millennium, but down here we got to go uphill. So if you know somebody that's messing around with a funny Bible, this is your chance to help them out, get some information. This is 400 pages on why the King James Bible is the right Bible and what's wrong with the modern Bibles. There's a Klingon version out of the Bible. Do you know that? I got Psalm 23:1 in Klingon right here. All these freaky-looking characters. You got an Ebonics translation out? Genesis 3:1. Now the serpent was one bad dude. That's in print in the bookstores tonight. Well, you can't hardly find a King James Bible. So the country's going down the slippery slope, and Christians ought to know what's going on, right? So anyway, I have 13 printings, so I'm not hard up or anything, but we had 4,000 printed last June, still selling. But we need to get the material circulating. So please sacrifice this morning. Don't mess with your tithe money or your pastor's retirement fund money. But help me get the job out. And I showed these books during Sunday school, but so many of you were not here. Here's the book the pastor was talking about, What If God Wrought? A Biblical Interpretation of American History. Now, again, you're going to read things in here you're not going to get them in Bible college. I went to 3 different Bible schools. I went to 3 Bible schools, 7 years. Never heard anything about the Baptists in America, what they did to get this country stirred up. Hey, listen to this. 1612. 1612. 1 year after the King James Bible came out. A preacher named Edward Whiteman was burned alive in London, a Baptist minister, for opposing baby sprinkling. King James was the king that gave the execution order. They had the right Bible, but they didn't have any freedom to do what it said. And he was the last martyr in merry old England, but that was one too many. His grandson, Valentine Whiteman, came to Connecticut in 1702 from England and started the First Baptist Church in your state. He pastored that church 42 years. His son took the church. Edward Whiteman Jr. Edward Whiteman, I think, Richard Whiteman. He pastored the church 42 years. He died. His son took the church. John Gano Whiteman. He messed up. He only pastored it 41 years. I live in Tennessee. The whole Bible Belt as we know it. We quoted the Sunday school lesson. The rabbi said America's Bible Belt became Israel's safety belt. That was a quote we left in Sunday school. What a quote! The entire Bible Belt. We have 195 Baptist churches in Knoxville, Tennessee. My little town, 195. 2,200 Baptist churches in Fort Worth and Dallas. Now, the whole Bible Belt was birthed out of one church in North Carolina, the Sandy Creek Baptist Church outside of Burlington. There were just 7 Baptist churches, just 7, south of the Mason-Dixon line. when that amazing church was started in 1755, November. Who started it? Man from this state? Shubal Stearns, a Congregationalist minister from near Tolland, Connecticut. Got converted under Whitfield's preaching in the Boston Common, but got studying his Bible and found out he had to get dunked. So many of Whitfield's converts turned Baptist. Whitfield said, all my chickens have turned into ducks. But the entire Bible Belt was birthed from one man of God come out of the state. So you'd think you'd want to know about some of these things. You know, it keeps us digging in our heels in for the Lord, occupy until He comes. And so here's 700 pages about all that stuff. What hath God wrought? A biblical interpretation of American history with a whole chapter on Elvis and a whole chapter on the Mafia. So this is very interesting kind of reading when I write books. That's $30 at the bookstore. There's the price there. Back there on the table, it's $20 this morning. And then when I wrote this in 1996, I put a little blip on the column. The Lord was planting a seed in my mind for the sequel without realizing it. I said, however, what God wrought, Satan sought. So they have an expression down south, the devil's always looking for a place to spit. Anytime the Lord's doing something, the devil will show up. So this book deals with how God set the country up, and this book deals with how the devil's been dismantling it ever since. And this is 1,000 pages. It's called How Satan Turned America Against God. It's the first volume of a 4-volume series called Understanding the Times. Volume 1, How Satan Turned America Against God. Now listen, you've got to trust somebody once in a while. You can get an entire college education, you read this one book. As far as, when I say that, as far as knowing what's going on. There's no way to explain to you what's in here. I just can't. I got 100-page chapter just on what happened on September 11th. I have an 80-page chapter on the Iraqi War. A whole chapter on the Masons. My wife's brother's a Mason. You know any Masons? I got a whole chapter. What's his name? John Quincy Adams, our 5th president, said the greatest threat to the American Republic is the Freemason movement in America. You're not going to get these things on the History Channel and Bible colleges. You've got to learn these. You can't change any of these things. But you can find out how Satan has been orchestrating all of these things for many years and what's going on. Right down the road here, Yale campus, New Haven, Connecticut. You ever been on the campus? You ever been down to the Art Museum on Chapel Street and High Street? Have you ever seen the Skull and Bones Temple down there? All right. You don't want to know who spent several nights in those coffins in there. Go get the Dopey Hollywood movie. You know I don't recommend that for real. But the PG, I had my wife out on the 25th wedding anniversary in Kauai, Hawaii, in 1999. There was the movie playing in the Marriott Suites. The skulls. Hollywood making money on this stuff. Dumb Christians don't know what's going on. You don't want to know who's been sleeping in that coffin and there with no clothes on. You can't change these crazy things, but you can allow these things to make you a little more sober-minded. The Bible said in the last days there's going to be evil men in high places, going to be traitors in the land. Duh. Well, why be surprised when this stuff shows up? And so anyway, this is $40 at the Christian bookstore, and it's $30 back there on the table. If you happen to want more than one of these, you can get them for $25 a piece. And if you get all 3 of these books, Blue Light Special, it would be $70. It'd be $90 if you bought them on my website this afternoon. 40, 30, and 20. But I'm selling them 20 and 20 and 30 at 70. But if you buy all 3 of them together, I'll even give you another little break, $10 off, $60, just to help us get the books out. And if you're a widow lady this morning, you get a free book. Just come by the book table and ask for one. All right, let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Well, turn over to Isaiah 40. This is where we left off, and I'm going to jump right into things. The purpose of the second half of this message is to scare you into next week. I don't want you walking out here in a fog where you can't get any books, but you will be in a fog. So tie a string around your finger, I must buy books, because you're going to be talking to yourself when we're finished this morning. I promise you, you're going to be talking to yourself. We're talking about why was America created? What was the purpose for the United States? Isaiah 40 verse 15 says, behold, the nations are as a drop of a bucket, and are counted as the small dust of the balance. Look at verse 17. Kofi Annan in the UN. Verse 17, what does God say? All nations before Him are as nothing, and they're counted to Him less than nothing in vanity. When the Lord looks at this planet, He says all the nations are nothing to Him. However, to save time, I won't have you turn to the verse we already covered, but over there in Numbers, Over there in Numbers, God said there's a nation that will not be counted among the nations. There's one nation that don't count, that's Israel. Remember that? That's an important cross-reference. So keep that in mind. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, we ask you now to bless us with great power. Be with us and manifest your presence. Stir up the brethren. And, Lord, get us closer to you and increase our fear of the Lord this morning. In thy holy name we pray. Amen and amen. All right, preacher, I was looking for a microphone stand, and I almost had a connection, but I couldn't find one. So I kind of have to use, that's right, I got to use this. This is a house church, so we always use side mics, and the other churches have clip-ons, and the Hillbilly churches have none. All churches have their own peculiarities. Amen? So how do we do these things? All right. Testing, 1, 2. That was a great fight, Mom, but I lost. I used to hate clip-on mics, and I like them, my hands can be free. I was looking for a clip-on mic, mic stand. Oh, brother. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Feel like I'm milking a cow. Yeah, I just got to pull that thing up. Now, the next time I work, the box of me is under the preacher's feet. I was trying to think it back here, and I kept bumping into a feet here. This is not working this morning. Now, all you ladies on the flower committee, don't pass out. I have to move this. All right. There's a penny over here. Heads up. All right. Now, I had a preacher's wife in Detroit, Michigan, purchased this for me when I preached the sermon not long ago. And this is a little plant, artificial plant. Anybody? Oh, pardon me. Anybody recognize what kind of plant that is? It's a wandering Jew, right. Now, teenagers, this little plant's going to illustrate the nation of Israel this morning. And I usually have a microphone pole I'm hanging on. I guess we can get by with this. Hanging the wandering Jew. That little plant right there represents the nation of Israel. It's called a wandering Jew because the nation of Israel has been wandering for 2,000 years. If you've been in the public schools, you haven't learned much. You don't know anything. It's not your fault, but you just don't know anything. And this is a redland country. And you don't know that the nation of Israel's been wandering for, that's perfect. The nation of Israel's been wandering for thousands of years because she got kicked out of her land. She denied her Savior that was sent for her. And come on, Lord, I left my glasses at the motel. My little suitcase thing went flying down and banged into that dude's car. He don't know about that? All right, I want that thing hanging there. It's a wandering Jew. All right. Now, that nation of Israel has been running ever since it got kicked out of its land in 70 A.D. And that's why it's called a wandering Jew. Now, what's that Bible say? We looked at 2 verses of Scripture now to show you why America's here. The first verse says, all nations before him are nothing, less than nothing in vanity. But then God said, wait a minute, there's one nation that doesn't count. This nation is not in front of me, it's behind me. It's behind my back, it's the apple of my eye. And you don't even want to think of messing with that nation. And then over there in Numbers, we read this morning, what did God say? I'll bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee. You teenagers, if you really want to learn something, you won't even get in half the Christian schools in America. We're so spaced out about so many things. Listen, all we care about in America right now is abortion. Do you know what's a deadlier thing to the gospel of Jesus Christ than abortion? Hate crime legislation. Anybody understand that we have 5 Roman Catholics on the Supreme Court tonight? First time in the history of the United States. Brother Bush just put 2 of them in. 5 Roman Catholics on the Supreme Court. You know why we got a problem with illegal aliens running all over the country? The Attorney General's name is Gonzalez, another Roman Catholic. Number 1 military man in America, General Pace, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Roman Catholic. Now, if you don't know what's wrong with Roman Catholicism, you don't belong sitting in a Baptist church. There may be an accident waiting to happen. You should read some books, put the TV remote down. I'll give you one book. Read the book that's outlawed in Canada called Fox's Book of Martyrs. You'll find out about Rome real quick. President Bush, both President Bushes and President Clinton went to the Vatican for the Pope's funeral. That was the first time in the history of the United States a president ever went to a Pope's funeral. Things are changing real quick. real quick, and you'll find out how quick they are. But that's another sermon. But now this Jew here, he's been booted out and he has no place to go. And what is America's purpose? Why are we here? God says all nations are nothing except this nation doesn't count. This is His nation. And then He said, I'll bless anybody that blesses Him and curse anybody that curses Him. Now here's the first premise of the book and the message this morning. America's unique prosperity. I mean, why we have so much stuff in this country. Why we lead the world in everything. It could, you never can tell, that King James Bible might be true. It could have a lot more to do with our historic relationship to this pot than any Power of Pride bumper stickers you might have on your vehicle this morning. It could have a lot more to do with Genesis 12:3 than Horatio Alger and pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. You never can tell. By the way, you might want to look at that verse that says, pride goeth before destruction. Now, our purpose as a nation, we were brought in, let me show you something interesting. Remember that gal I just quoted to you from at the end of Sunday school? That her words are on the Statue of Liberty? Emma Lazarus, this Jewish lady, poet, and she wrote the poem, The New Colossus, about the Statue of Liberty. And she said America had no past. She worried about the fact that America had no past and the Jews had no future. So she came to resolve the dilemma by claiming that it was the singular destiny of the United States of America to secure the fate of the Jew. You want to see that illustrated? America had no past. If you let that wall over there be the Garden of Eden, 4004 BC, that door, and let that door over there be where we are tonight, 2006 AD, just draw a 6,000-year timeline across the auditorium from wall to wall. Got it? You'd put the crucifixion around here, 2/3 of the way across the room. So from my hand to that wall is the Old Testament, 4,000 years. From here to that wall is the New Testament, 2,000 years. Ever dawned on you how long it took for the United States to show up on the community of nations, on the stage of nations? Look. Come on down here with me a while. Take a walk. America doesn't get discovered till about here. The United States doesn't start getting put together till about here. The railroads don't get invented till about here, about 1815, 1820. Look. Now, you really want to see something worth coming to church for? I mean, again, he has somebody like me in here. I'm not supposed to be like him. I'm supposed to dig up all this wild stuff all year round and come and scatter it around, stir up the places. He's the guy taking care of you every week. You get sick, don't call me. I don't care about you. I'm not going to pray for you. Why would I pray for you? I don't care about you. I have my own problems. That's your shepherd right there, see? And by the way, preacher, you talk like this down south, the people freak out on you. Old expression, Southerners offend easily. I like being around Yankees, man. I tell folks I live in Knoxville, Tennessee. I tell them, you know what the difference between a Southerner and a Yankee is? A Southerner can be patting you on the back while he's planning your funeral. Well, bless your heart, And they don't call it the Deep South for nothing, amen? And a Yankee can walk into a cancer ward and say, what's eating you, bub? I mean, I just like being around Yankees. I can't help it. Connecticut Yankees, amen? All right, now look over here. Now, you want to hear something profound. The railroads are invented here. This is the first time right here, when human beings could travel on Earth faster than Adam and Eve could back there in the garden. 25 miles a day on the back of a beast of burden. That's why they call the railroad the Iron Horse. Now, that starts here. Look how far away we're talking about. And now watch. When I got saved, I worked for British Airways in the Philadelphia airport. We had a Concorde back then, take you to London in 3 hours. Tonight, Jewish pilots can fly American-built Phantom jets from Dan in the north of Israel down to Beersheba in the south of Israel. They can fly the entire length of the nation in 90 seconds. Watch it. They're out of airspace after a minute and a half. They got a U-turn after 90 seconds. They don't have a big enough country to get their engines up to full throttle, twice the speed of sound, Mach 2. They burn out after about 1,000 miles an hour. But don't pass out on me, young people. I'm just trying to show you what's wrong with the crazy world you live in. You might want to know, because your survival might depend on it. Here's where it all begins, right here. Kit Carson and the Pony Express riders, right here, couldn't go any faster than Cain and Abel could. Then the railroads get invented, the Iron Horse, look. Now, we go from the Iron Horse here, look, to supersonic transportation over here, look. Look. That's where you're living in time. If you want to see where you'll find this in the Bible, sometime look at Daniel 12:3, where God gives you two signs for the last days, where men shall be running to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Transportation and information. You put the two together, you sound like it's an information highway. You wonder why you're spacing out as Christians, you know? Hey, so I come on ministry, where are you going this weekend? Where's my neighbors? Where you looking for them? What time's the meeting start? And when's the bus leave? That's how all of us are leaving. We're all living like this. Any old people? Oh. Any old people in here remember sitting on porches 40 years ago? Just sit there, remember? Hello. How many kids were on Redland back in those days? It was the Redland. Yes, sir, brother. We're in a weird world. Hey, by the way, for what it's worth, you know what the pastor's main burden for you folks is? And the pastor's wife, they're good people. You know what their burden for you is? Hey, that Bible says something about be still and know that I'm God, don't it? He's trying to figure out a way to get you to be still while you're running to and fro. You better do what that hymn says in the hymn book. Look it up sometime. Take time to be holy. Why the last days are crashing, Christians are collapsing, there's no walking with God, there's no time to do it. You got any problems? God told Moses, stand still. And now see the salvation of our God. If you're moving, he stands still. You stand still, you're moving. The Lord shall fight for you and you shall hold your peace. Exodus 14:14. But anyway, my point is, here's the point. Duh. Think with me. What in the world is America doing? What are we doing down there? We just showed up. We're a Johnny-come-lately nation. What is our purpose for being here, see? Look how far it is from my head to that wall. You know how old Egypt is? 6,000 years old. You know how old America is? Duh. Okay, then we want to think about this stuff. What are we here for? You know what I think we're here for? Same reason that woman whose words are on the Statue of Liberty tonight. Same thought she had. I think God really put us here for that plan. Now I'm going to show you why. I don't know how many educated people we have in here, but how many of you have spent one day in a college classroom? May I see your hand? I'm going to say you didn't pass. All right. Oh, we got a bunch of smart people in here. Now let me show you how dumb we all are. But Pastor and I aren't as dumb as you are, but we're in there with you. How dumb are we? All right. Anybody here ever been to Portsmouth, Rhode Island before? How many ever heard of Portsmouth, Rhode Island? All right. This is up the road, right? Now you want to see something profound? Again, I'm trying to show you the stuff that blew past in school. The stuff you weren't told. Stuff you're not going to see in the History Channel. Here's a photograph of the city limit sign of Portsmouth, Rhode Island. I've been not more than 2 or 3 hours from here driving. I'm up here many times. Here's the city limit sign. I took the picture myself. It says, "Welcome to Portsmouth, birthplace of American democracy, established 1638. Now, how many of you college-educated people were taught that democracy was born in Portsmouth, Rhode Island? Well, never heard of such a thing. You know why you're not going to hear about that? Because the man that established Portsmouth, Rhode Island is that guy on the left, a Baptist preacher from England, who was a medical doctor, who came into crazy Massachusetts up here and saw all the religious intolerance, people getting whipped and women getting hung and for being heretics and all the insanity over there. And he led 300 disgruntled people out of there, and they went to Portsmouth, and he established a community on the basis of freedom of conscience. And the city fathers in Rhode Island, a 75% Catholic state, can get tourism revenue because they got legitimate bragging rights. This is where it all started, in Portsmouth. The pure democracy. But they don't tell you a Baptist preacher started the colony. And John Clark moved his community down from Portsmouth, down to little Newport, and built his church there, and very, very nice. And his church is the oldest Baptist church in America. Isn't it? That's a big fantasy. He was across his province, and he had 6 months of the wannabe there. He got drunk by a guy who was sprinkling. You drunk me, I'll drunk you. Let's try this with Baptist church. 5, 6 months later, they adding up. I walked out, never came back, never went to another Baptist church the rest of his life. He's the only guy you ever get called about in Bible school. Roger Weir. He's a phony. He was not a Baptist. Right across the road there in Newport is John Clark's church. The oldest Baptist church in America. This is the stuff the devil doesn't want you to learn about. Now, why is this important? Here's a photograph of John Clark's church. The last building built in 1846, the John Clark Memorial Baptist Church. Church is still functioning. It's kind of wishy-washy, neo-evangelical type church, but it's the first Baptist church in America and the oldest Baptist church in America in continuous use. Now, why is that important? Here's why it's important. In 1654, a boatload of about 90 Jews left Brazil under Roman Catholic persecution. They went to New York, back then called New Amsterdam, Dutch colony, Peter Stuyvesant, New Amsterdam. And you know how they were treated? Very coolly. You know, if you're not Dutch, you're not much. You know, here's your hat, what's your hurry? Don't get too comfortable here. We don't like your type, yada, yada, yada. So they had a very tenuous existence there in New York. They built them a synagogue. The synagogue later burned to the ground, and it would be rebuilt after many years. But it was a rough time for them. They weren't very comfortable there. But about 4 years after those first Jews to ever come to American soil were given a cool reception there in New York, another boatload leaves Barbados in the West Indies. They heard about another place called Newport. Supposedly you can live there and believe anything you want. Now watch this. This boatload of Jews come in there. Pastor John Clark, when they arrive, he's over in England. He'll spend 12 years over there lobbying to get the charter of 1663 to give Rhode Island its unique religious liberty no other colony had. He got it, by the way, from King James's grandson, King Charles II, but it took 12 years to get it. He's over there in England when these Jews come into Newport. But they're given a warm reception there. Hey, your right to swing your fist ends where my nose begins. You can believe anything you want if you live here. Boy, those Jews, they were shocked. Hey, listen, you see, here's the thing. When you go to goofy public schools or inferior religious schools and don't learn anything, you don't know anything that's important. Do you know that for 2,000 years, young people, these Jews, wherever they traveled, ever since they got kicked out of their own land in 70 A.D. by the Roman Emperor Titus, they were wherever they've been wandering. That's Cain and Abel. Cain is a picture of the nation of Israel. A type of Israel. He kills his brother. He's a farmer. He's able to grow all kind of crops until he sheds his brother's blood. And as soon as the blood hits the soil, something goes wrong with the dirt. He can't grow anything anymore. He's a city slicker in the next chapter. God says, because you killed your brother, I'm going to make you a marked man. Jews are marked people, you know that? I'm going to make you a vagabond, listen, a vagabond and a fugitive. Remember that? You know what a fugitive is? It's somebody who runs from the law. You know what the first 5 books of the Jewish Old Testament are called? It's the law. You ever try to witness to a Jew? And he's got no place to live. He's a homeless person. That's what God said Cain was going to be, a vagabond. Going in circles. That's what the word diaspora means. Homeless. The Bible might be true. You never can tell. It could be true. He's been running, see, for years. And here it is now, the 1600s. Look. And he comes into Newport, but all of a sudden he's told, here, you're not going to get killed. See, anywhere he's been running, he's been getting killed. Burned alive, buried alive, skinned alive, shot, stabbed, hung, everything you can imagine. Pogroms, they call it. And all this kind of thing. You know about Hitler. I mean, that's the end of the show. That's been going on for 2,000 years, eh? Until some place called America shows up. See, here you can believe anything you want. And I read a book at one time by a rabbi named Gunstein, written in 1931, called The History of the Jews of Newport. And you know what he said? He said, you ladies will appreciate this. He said, those Jewish women were so shocked being told they had a free world there, they couldn't believe it. So they'd walk up and down the streets of Newport, Rhode Island, watch this, with Roman Catholic rosary beads in their hands, counting the beads, but praying their Hebrew prayers under the breath. But this is how they learned how to stay alive in Catholic countries. Convert to Christianity. All they knew Christianity was Catholicism. Hey, watch this. You know how they'd catch them over in Catholic countries, that rabbi's book said? Those Catholic inquisitors who knew they were getting scammed, by these fake conversions. You know how they'd hunt them down? They'd hunt them down on Saturday, the Sabbath. And they look at the chimneys in the wintertime. Smoke, 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 look. Hey, look, no smoke. Jew wouldn't build a fire on the Sabbath. They'd drag him out of his house and burn him alive before sundown. Now watch this. Those Jews built a synagogue there in Newport, and that synagogue is still standing. Several years later, the New York synagogue was rebuilt. That makes the synagogue in Newport the oldest synagogue in America. Still standing. Here's a picture of it right here. It's called the Toro Synagogue. Here's a picture of the outside. Here's a picture of the inside. Now, you want to see what kind of a soft life? How many remember Mr. Softy ice cream cone? Remember that? I call Christians Mr. Softy people. That's what we're all, Mr. Softy Christians. We're so soft, it's a joke. You want to see how easy you got it? Look over here. Here's a photograph I took of the trap door and the escape tunnel underneath the speaking platform in that Jewish synagogue. You can take your kids and show it to them tomorrow. Right there. That's the way they've lived. Pastor, you got a trap door down here? I know a lot of deacons try to get that, in the church for the preacher. He's preaching too long. Fire one. Okay, now, if you really want to see a blessing, you know what a Kodak moment means? Only God can do these kind of wild things. Here's a photograph I took of the oldest Jewish synagogue in America. Here's the picture right here. And brother, in the background of the picture, there's a white church steeple 2 blocks away, off the horizon there. You see it? See that white steeple there? It sure does look like that white steeple there. Christians are here. Here's a photograph of the oldest Jewish synagogue in this country, right here. And in the background, the church steeple to the oldest Baptist church in America. In the same photograph. With an American flag flying on the synagogue property thrown in for good measure. Now, if V.R. Lincoln were alive tonight, you know what he'd say? Hold my mule while I shout. Amen. I know you don't shout in Connecticut, but just, you can wish you did, right? Now, brother, I'll tell you what, I taught church history, taught this pastor church history for 10 years. That's not how long it took him to pass my course. But there's an old quote. That says, Judaism is the stalk on which the rose of Christianity bloomed. Now, let me tell you something. That Newport got those Jews in there, and they were welcome. So guess what they did? Ready for this? They started putting their money into the economy. Do you realize that God gifted Jews when it comes to making a buck? How many of you know that? You know why God did that? Because they're on the run so much. By the way, Carlton Sheets can't help them, amen? And real estate ain't any good. They got to make their money with jewelry, with precious stones. They're on the run all the time. You know why Gentiles hate Jews so much? Because Gentiles love money and Jews know how to make it. That's the story of the ages, right? That's it. One time this Gentile said to this Jew, "We don't allow any Jews in our village." And the Jew said, "That's why it's still a village." You know why the Jews wandered 40 years in the wilderness? You ever read that? Somebody lost a quarter, amen. Now, that's the way God made a Jew. He stays alive by his cunning. And God gifted him to make a buck, see? So those Jews now, they're given freedom in Newport, so they start putting their money into the economy. Lopez shipping lanes and Castile soap factories and candle factories and rum factories. And guess what happens? Next thing you know, Newport is the wealthiest colony in all of New England. I've read mail written to people back in the 17th century who lived in New York City at the time. To Joe Schmo, New Amsterdam, near Newport, Rhode Island. Promise. And then, 100 years after they got that freedom in little Rhode Island, the whole country's going to get it because of our Baptist ancestors in Virginia. Here's a picture I took of a park in Virginia. Right there's a photograph. It's called the Leland Madison Park. Historical marker here, telling you that that's the place where James Madison, the architect of the Constitution, called on the #1 Baptist minister in the state, John Leland, to beg his endorsement of the Constitution. Because Virginia was 3/5 Baptist, and without the Baptist without the Baptist endorsement of it, Virginia would not ratify the Constitution, and it was the biggest state of the 13 colonies. If Virginia said no, the thing could very well crash, and they would not endorse it until they got a promise for a Bill of Rights, for freedom of religion. And the historical people here got a marker telling you that's where the Bill of Rights comes from. You have the Baptist preacher's picture right there on the stone. You're not going to get this stuff in Bible school. You're sure not going to get it on the History Channel. And so the whole United States of America will get what little Rhode Island had one day, a place where anybody can come and believe anything they want to believe. You live in America, you can be so spoiled if you don't know how it's been around other parts of the world. That's the reason the whole country's crashing. And we're in a crash mode. Nobody knows, nobody cares. All I want is my video games and my TV remote and garage sales and tell me who's winning the NASCAR circuit and blah, blah, blah. You want a verse for NASCAR and the Super Bowl and the Winter Olympics and video games? You want a verse that covers all of it? That which is highly esteemed among men is abomination with God. Anything the people get excited about, God can't stand it. You think the country cares about that Bible? See? All right, now, what's that got to do with the price of eggs? Here's what it's got to do with the price of eggs. First purpose for America was to give that Jew a place to come and catch his breath after 16 years of running for his life. Now he's got a place where he's not going to be molested. And he comes in here, and he starts putting his money-making talents into this country, and he's free here. He's promoted here. He's allowed to live like anybody else. Hey, wait a minute. When does that verse have anything to do with America now? I'll bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee. King James Bible might be true. All right, we got two reasons for America's existence. First purpose was to give that little plant a place to come and catch his breath. But, Dorothy wasn't happy in Oz. She wanted to go back to Kansas, amen? And that plant, that's not where that plant belongs. Not where the plant belongs. But this is where he caught his breath for a couple hundred years. You know what happened in 1948? We gave him a leg up. Helped him get back to his own land. Now, let me tell you what's going on in the Middle East tonight. You know all the problems you got in the Middle East? It's all basically down to one thing. One thing. When World War I ended, when you lose a war, you got to divvy up. To the victor go the spoils. Well, you know about the Kaiser in Germany and Austria and Hungary. How about the Ottoman Empire? Don't forget those people. The Ottoman Empire. Who's the Ottoman Empire? The little jingles we live with today. Used to be the little ghetto blasters, we got the cars in California dance up and down, now and all this stuff. Now we got our all of us got our cell phone ringers. I got a whole chapter in my new book deals with that, chapter 20. Boy, is that a wild chapter. Oh, yeah. Make sure to get my offer before anybody reads the book. But when you lose a war, by the way, that guy owes you a pizza. That's right. Keep track of this thing. I want half. And pepperoni. And you know why Italians wear gold chains? They got nowhere to stop shaving, amen? All right. Oh, got to keep your attention somehow. Too many distractions in a Baptist church anymore. People, look how excited. Holy mackerel. It's hard to keep attention of people today. Spurgeon didn't have to tell Italian jokes. The people didn't have television and video games and, blueberries or raspberries, whatever these things are people wandering around with. I was preaching in my own son-in-law's church in Orlando, Florida a few months ago, and a teenage girl got a text message from some heathen boyfriend she's got, inviting her to a movie. She got up and walked right out of the sermon, go watch a movie with her, Oh, what a world we're living in. And don't look at me cross-eyed. I got this out of your newspaper last time I was preaching in Connecticut, back in October last year. October the 16th, 2005, Connecticut Post. Hello. Here's your wedding page. Remember that page? Can anybody see Adam and Steve over here? Well, this is Connecticut Post. You don't think we're in trouble tonight? Adam and Steve. Now, so to the victor go the spoils, right? When you lose a war, you got to divvy up. Well, the bad guys, one of the allies of the bad guys was the Ottoman Empire, the Turks. They had to give up all their land. So Mr. Churchill, around 1921, 22, he got him a cookie cutter, look. And he starts punching out artificial boundaries, making countries up. Look, this is going to be Iraq. This is going to be Iran. This is going to be Jordan. This is going to be Palestine. This one will be a homeland for Zionism, for Jews. But all of these little countries I'm making, they're going to all answer to us. There'll be British mandates. We'll be in charge, but they can live there and see if we can teach them how to be civilized nations, like trainer wheels. England was in Iraq for about 12 years. You knew that in the 30s? They couldn't calm that place down. They gave it up. They can tell the King James Bible might be true. Ishmael could be a crazy man, a wild man is exactly the way it's worded. And he'll dwell amidst all his brethren. He could be blowing himself up left and right. You never can tell what's going to happen over there. I'm sure that place is going to turn into a stable democracy. I've seen a copy of that Iraqi Constitution already. Do you know what Plank 10 says in their democracy? Plank 10, Islam is their official state religion. That's in their Constitution as I'm standing up here. That's what your boys and girls are dying for over there. I don't know if you know that stuff. Maybe that's not as exciting as a video game, but that's really what's going on. All right? So, what's that got to do with the price of eggs? Well, little Palestine, see, is there, and these Jews begin coming in there, but not very many of them are coming in there because there's so much corruption. Remember hearing about Lawrence of Arabia, and he's working with the Vatican, and the British officials are on the take, and these Jews that are in there, little Palestine, are getting murdered and killed, and they're having to have vigilante groups to stay alive, and it's a terrible time, see? Wait a minute. But then World War II comes, and Mr. Hitler gets finished wiping out all those Jews, and what a terrible thing he did. But wait a minute. When World War II was over, 6 million Jews wiped out, and I was a kid, 19 years old. I visited Poland and went into Auschwitz death camp where 1 million Jews perished. And I never got over that experience. Wait a minute, when World War II was over, those Jews couldn't wait to get into Palestine out of Europe. They were running for their lives. And there were so many coming in, and the British officials were going crazy, trying to control everything. Listen, Bob Jones Sr. made this amazing statement. He said, World War I prepared the land for the Jew. Balfour Declaration, Churchill punching out little Palestine, this will be for the Jews. Remember that? Wait a minute. World War I prepared the land for the Jew. World War II prepared the Jew for the land. You got a shellac in there with Mr. Hitler. He couldn't wait to go home. See, God knows how to move you around when He wants to get you to do stuff. All right, now here we go. After 3 years, after World War II, things were so chaotic, the British couldn't control things anymore. So they basically come up with a date, just like the British did in Iraq. You're going to be on your own. May 14th is the last day we're going to be here. At midnight, you're on your own. And May the 14th, that afternoon, David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, he goes into a library in Tel Aviv and reads over the radio in Hebrew the Declaration of Independence that's going to go into effect at midnight. Wait a minute. You can get on the internet tonight and read it. Play it and hear it in Hebrew and hear it up on your neck there. But that was in the afternoon. At midnight, May the 15th, 1948. Watch it. Put your seatbelt on. The British flag comes down, and this little flag goes up. That's the Star of David you can't see back yonder. Now, it took 2,000 years, but they're back. And they just got a toehold. The land is from the Mediterranean all the way to the Tigris and Euphrates, according to Genesis chapter 18. Chapter 15. It's a lot more than just what they got now. But that's the beginning. Now they're back as a nation. Now, hold on to your seatbelt. Hold on to your seatbelt. See this piece of paper? This is a photocopy of a press release it's in my book, that Harry Truman had his press secretary, Charlie Ross, read across the airwaves. The time is posted right here in the date. Don't miss this. This is profound what I'm getting ready to show you. There's a 6-hour time change between Jerusalem and Washington. They're 6 hours ahead, right? So at midnight, when their flag goes up on May 15th, that's 6 p.m. back in the United States. Now look at here. It's only 2 sentences long, but this kind of has to do with Walmart and Kmart and Dairy Queen and why you got so much junk in this country. So you might want to figure it out before you die why it's here. This government has been informed. I like this dude because he's from my old neighborhood in Yorkville. He lived in 96th Street. I lived in 86th Street. All right. You owe me any money? All right. He's also from Rocky Balboa country in Philly, and I eat many a Philly cheesesteak down there at, listen, I got to show you this. I like Philly cheesesteak so much. I paid $200 to put this picture in my book of John Kerry eating a Philly cheesesteak right there at Pat City Steak in South Philly. You like cheese? I don't like cheese with myself. All right, hang on to your seatbelt. This is a private conversation. All right, watch the press release now. This government has been informed that a Jewish state has been proclaimed in Palestine, and recognition has been requested by the provisional government thereof. The United States recognizes the provisional government as the de facto authority of the new state of Israel. Signed, Harry Truman, approved, May 14th, 1948. There's the time right there. What time does that say? Right here. Right there. 6:11. Right there. 11 minutes after 6. You know why it's 11 minutes after the flag went up? Because in the Bible, 11 is the number for distress and crisis. You know, 11th hour reprieve. What the parable say, it's the 11th hour, no man will hire us. You know, there's a lot of stress on September 11th, wasn't there? You know, when American Airlines Flight 11 hit the Twin Towers in New York City. I wonder how many letters in New York City. New York, New York, probably the 11th state in the Union. Times of the Gentiles coming to an end. Starting to come to an end once that plant's back. Now, friends, I've seen a lot of wild services. I've been to pastor school many years with a lot of practical help there. I've been to dead Bible conferences. I've been to exciting prophecy conferences. I've been to crazy camp meetings. Holy mackerel, preacher, here's a microphone stand here all the time. How come you didn't tell me this was back here? Now, that's pretty dirty. Now, I've seen all kind of wild services. I saw a camp meeting one time in Georgia, Sammy Allen's camp meeting. Preacher, evangelist Phil Kidd was standing up on top of Sammy Allen's pulpit, which is about 3 times the size of that thing. He's standing up there preaching with a Christian flag clipped under his chin like a cape. He had one of the 2 Kentucky Fried Chicken buckets they were using for an offering plate. He had one of them on his head for a helmet, and he's preaching like that. 2 o'clock in the morning, 1,000 people in the tabernacle running all over the place. I've seen everything. Johnny Cash, I've been everywhere, man. Now, look at this thing. Got to improvise here, okay. Now, I've seen a lot of wild things, but if you really would like to see something wilder than anything you've ever seen in your Christian life, you might want to get ready for this. Just get ready for this, that's all. See that little plane over there? You see that little Star of David flying there? That little Star of David went up May 15th, 1948, midnight. See it? Pardon me. 11 minutes after that flag went up, this is what happened, historically. Now, this may not be the best sermon, homiletically, but it's the best truth you'll ever hear between here and the rapture. And this is what's basically kind of been going on in late 20th century American history, if you're interested in... Anybody interested why we're getting away with murder, with abortion? 50 million babies aborted, and our country just keeps going up. More toys, more comfort of living, a longer lifestyle. Any cell phones back in 1973? VCRs, anybody? Not that these things are important, but they're important to Americans. Well, see, the judges said you can start butchering babies in 73, but this kicked in 48. And God doesn't reverse His decrees. Father Isaac, my brother Jacob tricked me and took my birthright. Can't you give me a birthright? I'm sorry, son, I can't reverse it. Remember the Wizard of Oz, the balloon? I can't turn it around. Once it leaves, it leaves. Hello? Now, you might say, though, that this is our insurance policy then, because there's definitely a chainsaw hanging over our head. Remember Balaam? There was a big double-bladed sword. He couldn't see it. The donkey could see it. America doesn't have the eyesight of a donkey tonight. There's definitely a chainsaw hanging overhead. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. All right, now here comes. You say, Brother Grady, you said you were going to scare us. I'm not really scared yet. Well, here comes the scary stuff. Here comes the scary stuff. All you teenagers, wake up now. Here comes the scary part. All right, are you ready? Can I summarize 6 years and 3 months of work? 1,000-page book. I'll summarize it all into one statement. That ought to get it. Let's see if this is good or not. It took me 6 years to come up with this one sentence. What's the future of America hold? I have 11 grandkids I mentioned. Probably got grandparents all over here. What's the future hold for our families and our country, and where are we going anyway? Anybody know where we're going? All right? What's that guy say a few years ago? Remember? Don't worry, be happy. Remember that? All right, everybody's got a right to their own 2 cents, right? Here's my 2 cents. What's the future hold? Here's Bill Grady's theory. Get the drum roll. Ready? Here you go. I don't think we got nothing to worry about. I think everything's going to be just fine. Unless that flag moves. That's it. That's it. Want me to give it to you again? See that flag? If that flag ever moves, don't forget the verse. All nations before him are nothing. Yeah. If it moves, you've got one option. Go get your Y2K bunker out of storage. Get some cell phone batteries and some water jugs and find a place that God doesn't know about and hang out there and call me let me know where it is, I'll join you. Listen, if that thing, you ever see people go like this? Look. If that flag ever moves, that's all you got to look forward to. I'm not talking about chop square in Riyadh, the way the Saudis do it, when you're on your knees. Wham! I'm talking the way Al-Qaeda does it when you're laying on your back and they just saw your head off while you're alive. There's several of those executions on the internet, and I wouldn't recommend you looking at them. I won't look at them. That's why Revelation is talking about all these people being beheaded in the tribulation period. And I'm pre-trib. Say, are you worried about going into the eruption of the Lamb? I'm not worried about that 7-year eruption because there's going to be an interruption before the 7-year eruption. 1 Thessalonians 4:16. But hold on to your seatbelt. I'm not so sure whether there might not be a disruption on this side of the interruption. Because all the corruption been put in that book by these modern Bible societies. Hello? All right, and they say, Brother Grady, what are you telling us? Okay, let me give you one last scripture for the sermon, and we'll be done for the morning with scripture. Turn to Amos 9, and I want to show you why, if that flag ever moves, we're going to be toast. Hosea, Joel, Amos. Third minor prophet book, right before the book of Andy. Amen. All right? Amos chapter 9. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Lamentations. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, the four major prophets, right? And then you got the minor prophets, Hosea, Joel, Amos. Just go to Amos 9. Now you teenagers, if you ever wanted to stay awake in a service and learn something that's worth hearing, this is going to scare you in the next week if you can get this. The Bible says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Now you got your Bible open, Amos 9. Let me set this thing up for you. You know, there's something in the Bible called the law of first mention. Anytime God mentions something in the Bible, the very first time it shows up, that shows you how God's going to use it the rest of the Bible. We're talking about the pastor's got is it a son who's 12 years old? All right, and I don't know how many of you have teenagers, amen, but something snaps at 13 sometimes. Mark Twain used to say when your kid turns 13, stick him in a box and put a hole in the box for air so he can breathe. And when he turns 17, plug the hole up. You've all heard that quote before. Why do teenagers tend to go crazy when they hit 13? King James Bible rules the world. Genesis, don't turn to it. Sometime look at Genesis 13, verse 13. You'll find a verse that has 13 words in it. Now, the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners exceedingly before the Lord. That's the first time the word sinner shows up in the King James Bible, in Genesis 13, verse 13, a verse with 13 words in it, and the sin is homosexuality. You want to count how many letters in that word sometime. You know, how many colonies rebelled, you know? And 13 original colonies. 13 is the number for rebellion in the Lord of God. That's set in stone. That's the first mention of it. Now, let me ask you a question. The most overworked word in the most overworked phrase in our generic screwball culture today is, oh my God, everything is, oh my God. Nobody's afraid of God. Get rid of the 10 Commandments and everyone's taking God's name in vain. All right, now wait a minute. The most overworked word in the religious vocabulary of men, listen, is the word holy. Holy Father in Rome. Yeah, tell me all about it. Call no man on earth your father. The Holy Virgin Mary. I know her 6 kids are listed in Mark chapter 6 in the Catholic Bible. 4 boys' names given. Read about it sometime, the Holy Virgin Mary. The Holy Koran. Yeah, tell me all about that one. Holy Macrolandi. And Batman and Robin. Holy this, holy that. Everybody's got a holy this, holy that, right? You understand? Now, when God thinks about holy things, what do you think He thinks about? All right, now put your seatbelt on. The very first time that the word holy shows up in the King James Bible. You understand? The very first time it shows up in the Bible, would you like to know what it's talking about? Don't ever forget this. Dirt. Remove the shoes from off thine feet, for the place wherein thou art standing is holy ground. First thing God ever said was holy to Him was dirt. But not any dirt. Dirt over that little Sinaitic peninsula there, connects Africa, Asia, and Europe. I've been there 3 times. It's no bigger than the size of New Jersey. called the land of Palestine today, I guess. But it sure is holy to God. That's why when Naaman got healed, we all get carried away with the dramatic healing. You know, dunk 7 times, come up, you know, and wow, you know. But did you miss the real significant part of the story when he goes back to Syria to worship the God of Israel now? He's pulling all those burros and donkeys with him, laden down with those bags of holy dirt. Did you catch that in the story? Because he's going to worship the God of Israel from another country. Put that dirt down there and put his altar up on it. Dirt's holy to God. Right? Holy. See, Brother Grady, this is not really scary yet. Okay, ready? Want the scary stuff? Can we start right now? Teenagers, are you ready? Every one of you kids that pays attention, he's going to give you a free pizza. Or a free piece of that guy's pizza. Let's see if you can follow long enough now. Ready? Let's see if God means what he says and says what he means. You understand what I'm saying? All I'm saying is if you move that flag, it's night time. Let's see what the God means now. Ready? Here we go. October the 30th, 1991, Madrid, Spain. Look at President George Herbert Walker Bush with Secretary of State James Baker sitting up here behind him. He's at the Madrid Peace Conference Summit that he's convening. Watch it. He's come up with a new way to bring peace to the world. He's going to be Jesus. You know, he's going to bring peace to the world. Watch it. He come up with the term. It's called Land for Peace. It's his idea. Now watch. This is really what we're coming to church for. Here's the Jews over here. Here's the Palestinians over here. See them? Now watch. Day one. Okay, now, you Jews are going to have to give up some of that land. They make territorial concessions. You're going to imagine a burglar would come, I want some territorial concessions. Give me some of your junk. All right? What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to give up some of that land to these Palestinians here. You got that? The Golan Heights have to give them back to Syria. But you're going to have to give up that Gaza Strip, and you have to give up the West Bank. Don't think about a West Bank, a fishing bank 2.5 feet wide. How about 40-mile wide bank? How about the heart of the country? How about historic Judea and Samaria? That's what the West Bank is. 1/3 of the dinky little country that's now no bigger than Jersey. And don't forget about the fact that all the Muslim nations of the world, their land put together is 630 times the size of Israel, with unlimited oil revenues. So if some of them Arabs were worried about those poor little Palestinians, I'm sure they could find some place to put them. You know, you'd think they could kind of like do that. But watch here. Here we go. All you Jews, you got to give up some land to these guys. You understand that? Ready? Don't miss it. Ready? Okay, now, you Palestinians, here's what you guys got to do. Ready? You guys got to give them assurances of peace. All the quotes from the conference in chapter 1. You got that? Hey, Mr. Arafat, pay attention. Quit playing with them hand grenades. Look up here at me. This guy used to run around with the NASCAR checkered flag on his head, you know? He's down there with the Pope and Johnny Cochran tonight, okay? They still don't know how he died. Whether he died of cirrhosis of the liver, poisoning, or AIDS. They don't know what happened to him. It could be the King James Bible, so I'll curse him that curses him. See, Brother Grady, that's funny what you just described, but that's not really scary. Ready? Here's the scary part. Guess what was happening while President Bush was waving his finger at that Jew? Same afternoon. Off the coast of Nova Scotia, this amazing weather pattern forms, and no one's ever seen anything like it before, 300 miles wide, watch it, with winds of 76 miles an hour, 1 mile an hour short of hurricane, or 75 miles an hour, 1 mile an hour short of hurricane status, so it was dubbed, listen, a tropical storm. Anybody know where tropical storms form? Anybody know who's buried in Grant's tomb? Amen? Tropical storms don't form in the North Atlantic off the coast of Nova Scotia. And all these meteorologists in the world are going like this, look. Now, Bush ain't getting it. He's too busy waving his finger. Girls, you're missing something really cool here. I know I'm not Michael Jackson, but this is really cool stuff if you get this. Because your whole world's at stake. You know, you might die next week. Watch. We just escaped from Hawaii 3 weeks ago. Anybody see the Hawaiian Islands? If anybody, the world's coming to an end. If anybody did. You know, I preach all across America. Usually the teenage department, fingernail ministry while I'm preaching. The parents aren't much more spiritual. Baptist salute ministry going on there. And mothers bed freshening the babies in the Carolinas, you know. But if anybody, there's a stinking world coming to an end. Oh, you don't need to go video movie and crazy science fiction movie. Just look out the window. Duh! Back to my scary sermon. Ready? All right. Bush don't know because he's too busy being Jesus. Now, while this thing's forming, the remnants of Hurricane Grace come up out of the Caribbean and go on up there and join the thing. Now it's 500 miles wide. They don't do nothing. Hurricane, all it does is come. Day 2, October 31st. You Jews are going to have to, you didn't do much yesterday. I got a legacy. I mean, we got peace at stake here. Come on. You understand that? Got that? Now, you know what October 31st is, right? What is it? Halloween. You know what this thing said, this weather pattern is? I think I'm going to go like trick-or-treat. Yeah, I think I want to go like trick-or-treat in America. Now, the only problem is America's west of Nova Scotia, and all the weather patterns run west to east, but it's already showing up in the wrong part of the world. What's the big deal if it goes backwards 1,000 miles, which is what it would do? It has like a mind of its own, ready? So it starts heading off to America and start knocking on doors. Anybody want to see the first door knocked on? I got 68 photographs in this book, and half of them major wire photos. This AP picture cost me $250 to print. Here's a picture of President George Bush surveying storm damage to his vacation home at Walker's Point, Kennebunkport, Maine, November 2nd, 1991. He came home from Madrid 2 days early for this thing. You say, Brother Grady, that's a coincidence. Yeah, but it's cool, ain't it? Wouldn't you use it? Hey, but while we're on the subject of coincidences, you want another coincidence? When's the last time you heard of a storm that was so unusual? They wrote a book about it, made a major film about it, then a major Hollywood star like George Clooney got the lead role, and then they wound up giving it one of God's attributes the title. You might have remembered it as The Perfect Storm. Hey, any teenagers out there that listen? KJ's Bible might be true, you never know. That's right. This may be more important than, the girl groups. That's right. Hey, you like coincidence? Here's another one. Here's a front-page headline for the New York Times. Next day. It cost me $200 to print this for you. Mideast foes list demands and trade angry charges across conference tables. See it? There's the Madrid Peace Conference front page right there. Looky, what's right next to it. There's a photograph of the coastline of Brooklyn, New York, torn to shreds by the perfect storm. It's only side-by-side coverage on the front page of the New York Times. You know what the Greek word for that is? Duh. I was preaching at Long Island last year. 2 years ago, a young lady from up, she don't even say, like 3 months. She came up to me, hey, Brother Grady, look at the voice God gave you while you was preaching. Psalm 83, verse 4, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. So persecute them with thy tempest and make them afraid with thy storm. I said, I'll take it, sister. But you say, that's a coincidence. Yeah, would you like another one? The following August 23rd, Bush is back in Washington, D.C. We're reconvening the Madrid Peace Conference on American shore now. Don't bring that thing here! You dummy! Watch it! You Jews are going to have to... You understand? Anybody want to see the headline of the New York Times next morning? This was another $200. Are you listening? Here it is. Anybody interested? Here it is. What does it say right there? Israel offers plan for Arabs to rule an occupied land. Dateline, Washington. There's the peace conference. Front page. Look what's right next to it. Thousands homeless in Florida storm. Hurricane Andrew tiptoes the shore the same afternoon. There's a photograph. They're just side by side. Nobody knows how fast that thing was going because at 175 miles an hour, it destroyed the hurricane station in Coral Gables, Florida. My brother went to Sing Sing prison for shooting a man in the police station in Brooklyn one time. He was as hard as nails. He lived 25 miles from the eye of that hurricane. He called, witnessed him in 15 years. He called and said, somebody up there must be praying for me. Shook up like a baby. I called him from a preacher's home in Parsonage in Illinois. Witnessed him for the first time in 15 years. He was dead in 3 weeks. 9 bullets put in his body in a shootout at the Miami Police Department. But that hurricane shook him up so bad. Oh, here's another headline. Bush's gain from convention nearly evaporate in latest poll. Here's an article about Mr. Clinton beginning to chase Bush now. And now you political pundits know the rest of the story, how a dope-smoking, fornicating, draft-dodging hillbilly from Arkansas who could campaign for the White House on the Arsenio Hall show, playing a saxophone with sunglasses on, could unseat a conservative-appearing Republican incumbent. I'll curse in the cursing. I don't care what political party you belong to. He just cares about that pot, and you're better off smoking pot than messing with that pot. Yeah. So Mr. Clinton, he gets in. He's not much smarter. He goes over to Geneva, Switzerland about a year and a half after he gets in the White House, and he sits down with the Palestinians and the Jews over there. You Jews are going to have to, you understand? Within 24 hours, a 6.9 earthquake will hit Los Angeles. Second greatest natural disaster in the 20th century in America, second only to Andrew. Anybody out there? Hey, you don't have to, somebody said truth is stranger than fiction. In the 20th century, you don't have to make stuff up. 21st century, look at here. No time to go over this. You can look this up on your own. This is not an extended infomercial, but this is where the information is sitting here. On page 6 of my book, I've got 14 different dates. September 1st, 93, March 2nd, 97, January 21st, 98. 14 dates when Yasser Arafat comes to America with the blood of those Jews on his hands. And what happened to America the day he touches our soil? Hurricane Emily, and stock market crashes 524 points. And hey, I like this one here. January 21st, 1998, President Clinton is waiting to meet Arafat at the White House. At this exact time, the president's sex scandal breaks across the country. No one ever heard of Monica Lewinsky till Arafat showed up. Now, back even in the waiting room, that filthy story. You know what I'm talking about? Clinton's in there with Monica, and Arafat's outside in a waiting area. Remember that thing? You men know what I'm talking about? I'll tell you, there's a God in heaven, friends. There's a God in heaven, friends. So Mr. Clinton, he goes out, so then Mr. Bush comes in. Now, our Christian president, is he going to do any better? Well, I'll just give you the facts. Remember Joe Friday, just the facts man? Says, hey, Lenin, the father of the Communist Party, said facts are stubborn things. Baptist preachers don't have the character Lenin had. Facts are facts. Footnotes are footnotes. Here's the story. President Bush gets in there. June 3rd, 2001, he sends former CIA Director George Slam Dunk Tenet. Don't forget former, and don't forget the slam dunk. That was his code word. It's a slam dunk. There's WMDs there, Mr. President. Don't worry about it. So he goes over there to Jerusalem, and he lands there, and there he is in Jerusalem hassling those Jews about the West Bank. And look at here. You Jews are going to, you understand? Look. When he got off the airplane at Lod Airport in Israel, look. When he got off the airplane, a tropical storm by the name of Allison shows up out of nowhere. It had never heard of the term, don't mess with Texas. It was more familiar with the idea of don't mess with Israel. It went straight to Texas. And it rained on Texas the whole 5 days Tenet was in Jerusalem. If you think I'm crazy, do your own homework. I was just in San Antonio preaching a few weeks ago. They still remember that storm. How bad was it? Not bad. Worst storm in history of Texas. Not very bad. School buses floating down the main streets. Listen, the preacher's wife's from Florida. She's the one nodding her head there. She knows what's going on with these crazy things. My son-in-law pastors in Orlando, Florida. They hadn't had 2 hurricanes in 100 years in Orlando. They had 3 in one year last year. Anybody out there? This is real stuff. And that storm caused $7 billion damage in Texas, shut down Bush Intercontinental Airport for 2 days, shut Houston down for 3 days. And then last of all, I'll close with this. Everybody's wondering about 9/11. What about September 11th? You would never believe in 10 million years what was going on in America during the week of September 11th. You would never believe it in 10 million years, Christians. I'll quit with this. I've cut out several things here because if I'm in a church all day, I can take a lot more time. But I'm done with this. On September the 11th, what was going on in America? You wouldn't believe it in 10 million years. I'll just give you the quick summary of it and we'll go home. President Bush was on television, CNN cameras. He made a negative statement about Yasser Arafat. Did something right. Okay, Arafat can do more for the peace process. Quit blowing up Jews, for instance, And when he said that, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, a guy named Abdullah, who's now the king of Saudi Arabia, was watching with a cigar in his hand. He saw it. He got mad. And he jumped on the telephone and called his ambassador to Washington, a billionaire named Prince Bandar. Get on over to Washington and read Bush the Riot Act. Got it? Now, what I'm reading to you come out of a secular man's book with academic credentials as well. Washington Post Book Review, New York Times Literary Society, all these books. 2004, look it up on your own. House of Bush, House of Saul. The author's name is Unger, which means what he said factually actually is true. It's not Jerry Springer's internet website rumor stuff. Now, here's what happened. Then put your seatbelt on, and we'll be done with this. On August the 20th, don't forget the year. We're talking about 2001 now. Ready? On August 27th, with Bush still in Crawford. Now, he's been the president of the United States for 9 months. He's on a 1-month vacation now, talking to the cows, fishing. That's the stuff he says he does down there. On August the 27th, with Bush still in Crawford, Bandar met with Condoleezza Rice in her White House office. Quote, this is the hardest message I've had to deliver between our two countries since I started working here in 1983, Bandar said, using a 25-page document from Abdullah as his script. As related by a senior Saudi official, the message said, quote, "We believe there has been a strategic decision by the United States that its national interest in the Middle East is now 100% based on Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, who, by the way, he ain't doing too good lately. Kind of like Mr. Shamir caught a bolt in the back of his head by one of his own countrymen, trying to get that dirt up. I'll tell you, but the message made clear that the Saudis had concluded that Bush was a lost cause. Quote, "Starting from today, you're from Uruguay, as they say. You Americans go your way, I and Saudi Arabia will go my way." Don't miss the part you're supposed to read between the lines. And we'll be dragging our gas pumps with us. From now on, we will protect our national interests regardless of where American interests lie in the region. End of quote. And Bandar left no room for compromise. Now is the time to, quote, "get busy rearranging our lives in the Middle East," he said. He was instructed not to have any further discussions with the United States. Could it be that the two countries' 60-year alliance was finally coming to an end? Unsaved man wrote this. Wouldn't know the Bible if he saw it. Shocked by this ultimatum, Rice told Bandar that there had been no change in U.S. policy. She agreed to rush the message to the president. Put your seatbelt on. For his part, Bush still had no intention of getting involved in the sticky Middle East peace process. What's the next word? But's first cousin, nevertheless. Nevertheless, Bush was so stunned by the Saudi threat that he immediately did an about-face. Within 36 hours, Bandar returned to Riyadh with a groundbreaking personal message written by the president to mollify Abdullah. If you're a teenager, don't know what the word mollify means, it means kiss up to. Quote, "I am troubled and feel deeply the suffering of ordinary Palestinians in their day-to-day life, and I want such tragedies and sufferings to end," Bush wrote. You can put yada, yada, yada after that. Here comes the important part that has to do with Walmart and Cracker Barrel and everything else that means something to you. Are you ready? Bush added, "I firmly believe that the Palestinian people have a right to self-determination and to live peacefully and securely in their own state, in their own homeland," end of quote. Boy, that would be okay if it was anywhere else in that 630 times the size of Israel stuff. But the place they're talking about is inside that pot. They're talking about 1/3 of the pot. Giving it back. Christians, I can't believe this. I'm not myself today for some reason. I don't know what it is. I think that fish. I asked for it, but I don't like fish. I'm not myself today. I left my eyeglasses at the I couldn't find my glasses. Don't turn to it for time. Don't you turn to it for your time. I had you turn over to Amos before. Remember that? I never read the verse. Maybe God wants you to get it now. Let me read it to you. It's Amos 9:14. I guess it's the scariest verse in the whole Bible that fits this scenario. And I've never got this verse out of sequence. I don't have to work very hard. I just got one sermon. I preach every week somewhere. You understand? Whenever I come back, I'm in trouble. I got to study. But the Lord said, "Dummy, you didn't show him Amos 9." You want to see what we're talking about? Verse 14. "And I will bring again the captivity of my people of Israel, and they shall build away cities and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and drink the wine thereof. They shall also make gardens and eat the fruit of them," right? Now, while they're planting, this is when they come back from being dispersed around the world. I'll bring in their captivity again. Got kicked out twice. 586, came back after 70 years. Remember that? 70 AD, got kicked out, came back after 1900 years. Now, while they're planting their vineyards, look what God's doing. He's busy planting them. Look at verse 15. "And I will plant them," see it? "Upon their" what? "Land," holy dirt. "And they shall," what's the next two words? "No more be pulled up out of their land, which I have given them, saith the Lord thy God." You see that thing? I wonder if God meant that. All right. Bush was not just getting involved. For the first time, he was publicly supporting a Palestinian state, and he had now done so in writing. Secular man wrote this. Abdullah had played the game well. Ready? Last thing I got to show you worth seeing this morning. He had banged his fist And the United States had jumped. I'm just reading what the secular man wrote. This is Mr. Arafat's flag. Time to play sharesies now. Hey, 2/3 of a loaf is better than none, right? We only want 1/3 of the land. That's all. I'm sure everything will be okay, right? Abdullah was so thrilled with his victory, the Post reported, that he proudly showed off his correspondence, Bush's 2-page letter and the long message that he had given Bandar as trophies to Arab leaders in Syria, Egypt, and Jordan. Look at what I get from Mr. Bush. At Abdullah's invitation, Yasser Arafat came all the way from South Africa to Riyadh just to read the letter. Then Abdullah sent Bandar back to Washington to help transform the words into deeds and to convince the president to make public that he was now calling for a Palestinian state. Put your seatbelt on. I didn't write this. Look. On Friday, September 7th, remember the year? This is 2001. On Friday, September 7th, 3 days after Richard Clark's attempt to lobby his proposal to fight al-Qaeda through the administration, Bandar met with Condoleezza Rice, Dick Cheney, Colin Powell, and President Bush in Washington and told them how happy he was to discover that he had misinterpreted the White House's policy toward the Middle East. The administration reiterated its desire to pursue new peace initiatives immediately. We got to get those SUVs back on the road, man. You see how cool God is? He's not worried about anything. He's got it set up so that in the last days, apostate Christian America needs our oil from Muslim Saudi Arabia with little Israel in the middle. Now it's a loss, man. We call that a squeeze play. Many questions were unresolved about how to pursue such initiatives, but suddenly there was enough goodwill that discussions continued between the two countries over the weekend of September the 8th and 9th. At issue was whether Colin Powell or President Bush should make the speech announcing the new plans. Bush was even willing to meet with Arafat at the United Nations, a prospect that pleased the Saudis immensely. And lest anyone doubt that Bush would follow through this time, he personally invited Bandar back to the White House the following Thursday to pursue these matters. I have a 100-page chapter just on 9/11. Here's the concluding paragraph of that 100-page chapter. Put your seatbelts on. And so on that Monday night, Prince Bandar bin Sultan bin Abdul Aziz was, in his own words, quote, the happiest man in the world, end of quote. As he told the Washington Post, he decided to relax in the indoor swimming pool of his lavish McLean, Virginia residence, smoking a cigar. He had been back and forth between Saudi Arabia and Washington with the Bush response and then with the Saudi response. He had worked through the entire weekend until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And then he had worked all day Monday. He deserved a rest, so he called his office. He told them he was taking Tuesday off. Tuesday, September the 11th, 2001. You know, you don't really have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that those towers coming down sure did stall that announcement for a few weeks. Teenagers, you think the Bible could be right? Maybe that dirt could be holy again. Maybe he ain't coming out once he's back. You never can tell. Every preacher's got their favorite verse for September 11th. My favorite single scripture is Isaiah 26:5, for he bringeth down them that dwell on high. I grew up in Manhattan. We call it the Big Apple. The lofty city, he layeth it low. He layeth it low, even to the ground, buzzword. Yeah, ground zero. He bringeth it even to the dust. Now, I'm all done. I'm not a prophet, and I'm not the son of a prophet. But God don't mind blessing Christians for their work. I'm sure the pastor's been blessed here and all the labor he's put in here. God's funny about stuff. I don't know how this happened, but I know what I wrote in March of last year. 1 year ago this month, this came out in print. I'm closing. If you're still undecided about standing with the Lord, just start watching the Weather Channel.